I've learned that most people don't notice the things they see every single day. You stop registering what blends in. The fading on your doormat, the tiny chip on the bathroom tile, the fact that your kitchen mugs all come from the same set. But when something doesn't belong, it jumps out. At least to someone like me. It was a Wednesday morning in late October. I was called to a quiet two-story home in a suburb of Minneapolis. The kind of neighborhood where leaves are neatly raked and mailboxes are color-matched to shutters. That morning, the silence had cracked. Angela Ford, 36, high school English teacher, had been found dead in her kitchen. Her sister, Lauren, had come over after not hearing back from Angela for 2 days. She used the spare key, walked in, and found her lying on the tile floor next to the fridge. From the first step inside, I felt that something wasn't right, and not because of the body. Angela's posture didn't match the panic you'd expect in a sudden collapse. She wasn't curled or clawing for help. She was laid out neatly, one arm at her side, the other slightly bent at a right angle. Too perfect. But that wasn't what got me. It was a mug. It sat alone on the drying rack by the sink, a dull forest green ceramic mug, with a tiny chip near the base. The rest of the mugs, lined in the cabinet above, were part of a pristine white set. Identical. Symmetrical. Angela was meticulous, her sister confirmed that, and she didn't like mismatched things. Her word, that green mug wasn't hers. I didn't touch it right away. I stared at it, the angle, the drip lines down the side, lip residue barely visible against the dark glaze. I've seen hundreds of drying racks. This mug wasn't just rinsed. It had been washed, by hand, quickly, like someone realized it needed to disappear, but didn't want to throw it out. Angela's death was ruled sudden cardiac arrest, pending toxicology, no signs of trauma, no forced entry, no signs of a struggle. But I kept thinking about that mug. I asked the sister again, "Are you sure Angela didn't own a mug like this?" Lauren shook her head. She hated dark kitchenware, said it made everything look dirty. I had the lab rush a fingerprint scan. 3 partials. One was Angela's. The other 2 weren't in the system. That told me 2 things. Someone else drank from that mug recently, and they were either very clean or very careful. Angela's laptop showed she'd been grading papers a night before she died. Nothing unusual. No signs of a break-in. Her phone was beside her, but in the search history, something subtle. Just before midnight, she had Googled, "What is digoxin poisoning?" Now we were getting somewhere. Digoxin is a heart medication. In the right dose, it regulates arrhythmia. In the wrong dose, it kills. The symptoms mimic a heart attack. And in the hands of someone who knows that, it becomes a perfect weapon. Tasteless, slow, hard to trace. The tox screen came back. Digoxin levels 5 times above therapeutic range. Fatal. Angela was murdered. But who uses a poison like that? Someone with knowledge, access, and a motive. I went back to the mug. The chip at the base wasn't just cosmetic. Inside the chip, embedded in the ceramic, we found a faint transfer of lipstick. Not from Angela's usual shade. This one was darker, more burgundy, more mature. We checked traffic cams near the neighborhood. Nothing. Security footage from a neighbor 2 houses down caught a car pulling up around 9:15 p.m. A dark blue Nissan sedan. It parked for 47 minutes, then left. I asked Lauren again, "Did Angela have any recent relationships?" She hesitated. She mentioned someone she was seeing, but didn't give a name. Just said he was older, divorced, used to be a paramedic. Paramedic. That night, I combed through local EMT certification records, cross-referenced with registered vehicles. 3 days later, we had a match. Greg Whitmore, 52, divorced, former paramedic, suspended for misconduct involving narcotics 2 years ago, drives a blue 2011 Nissan Altima. We brought him in. He was calm, friendly, almost rehearsed. Claimed he hadn't seen Angela in over a week. Said they mutually cooled off. But when we showed him the mug, he twitched. A tiny flick of the eye. We told him it had fingerprints. That was a bluff. We hadn't matched his yet. But it worked. He leaned back, crossed his arms. So what? I drank coffee there sometimes. He was unraveling. Turns out, Greg had access to digoxin from a friend still in the EMS circuit. Traced back via text messages where he asked, hypothetically, how much could knock someone out? Not kill, knock out. That was the lie he told himself. Angela had found out. That's why she searched the term before she collapsed. She felt the symptoms. She connected the dots. And she died before she could call for help. Greg pled guilty to involuntary manslaughter. Said he only wanted to scare her into staying. Didn't mean to kill her. That was a lie too. Sometimes the key to a murder isn't blood or gunpowder. Sometimes it's a chipped green mug in a kitchen too orderly for strangers. The devil, as always, is in the detail. And this one didn't belong. There's a rhythm to grief. People remember things in pieces. What they said last, what they forgot to say, what they wish they had. But the dead don't change. Only the living do. That's why it struck me, as I stepped into Rachel Green's living room, that something had changed. Something too small for the others to care about, but big enough for me to stop breathing for half a second. Rachel, 42, elementary school counselor, lived alone in a small craftsman-style house just outside Eugene, Oregon. Her body was found by her neighbor, Clara, who hadn't seen her in 2 days and noticed a sour smell leaking through the walls. Police entered through the back and found Rachel lying face down in her living room. No forced entry. No signs of struggle. Nothing broken. A natural death, they said, but Clara insisted. Rachel always opened the blinds a certain way. Always down. Always angled, so the sunlight wouldn't hit her couch. She had this thing about fading fabrics. It sounded trivial. To them, not to me, when I walked into the living room. The first thing I did wasn't look at the body. It was the window. The blinds were closed, slats tilted up, that would bounce sunlight off the ceiling, not block it. More light, not less. If Clara was telling the truth, and she had no reason to lie, then someone else closed them. Someone who didn't know Rachel's habits. The rest of the house was tidy. Not staged. It had the soft chaos of real life. A phone charging on the kitchen counter. Half a banana on the table. A tea mug in the sink. But no signs of trauma. No bruises. No blood. She collapsed on the carpet, one shoe on, one off. Her expression was frozen. Mouth slightly open, eyes blank. At first glance, it could have been a stroke or aneurysm, but that detail, the blinds, kept needling at me. I asked for the autopsy to be expedited. While I waited, I did what I always do when something feels too clean. I pulled at the phrase. Rachel's routine was obsessively consistent. I confirmed it with her work. She arrived at 7:15 every morning. She texted her sister at 10:30, every weekday without fail, but on the day she died, that message never came. And oddly, she texted someone else, a man named Dennis Holt, at 6:49 a.m. The message said, "Please don't come over today. I need space." I mean it. Firm, unusual, and final. Dennis was her ex-boyfriend. They'd been off and on for years. He was known to be intense, controlling. Even when we brought him in, he looked tired. Not surprised, not emotional, just tired. I hadn't seen her in over a week, he said. She wanted time. I gave it to her. I asked about the text. He nodded. Yeah, I got it. Didn't respond. But that wasn't true. Cell tower data showed his phone ping near her house at 7:21 a.m., just 30 minutes after that message. He had been there, even if just briefly, back to the scene. The blinds weren't just closed wrong. They had a single fingerprint, right index. Smudged, but usable. It wasn't Rachel's. I called her sister, Jennifer. I asked her about Rachel's morning routine. She said Rachel opened the blinds every morning at 7 o'clock. Sharp. Habit. Coffee, blinds, then shower. Always in that order. And yet the blinds were closed when she was found. If she had opened them at 7 o'clock and Dennis arrived at 7:21 and they were closed the wrong way after she died, someone had to close them after she was already dead. The autopsy report came in. No signs of stroke. No heart failure. But there was something else. Traces of succinylcholine in her system. A paralytic. Fast-acting. Invisible without a specific test. It causes muscle failure without affecting consciousness. The victim is awake. Aware. Just trapped. You don't get that kind of substance by accident. It's used in hospitals. Rare. Regulated. Unless you know someone who knows someone. Dennis worked in private security. Former EMT. That gave him some access. Enough to know what it does. Enough to find it. Enough to use it. His fingerprints were on the blinds. His location data put him at the house. And Rachel's final message told a story of someone drawing a line, a boundary. But abusers don't like boundaries. They like control. And control, when threatened, often turns into violence. We confronted Dennis with the evidence. He didn't deny it. He didn't admit it either. He just said she didn't want to talk anymore. No rage. No remorse. Just absence. He'd come that morning, hoping to talk his way back in. Maybe she resisted. Maybe she said something final. Maybe he didn't plan it. Not fully, but had the drug in his car. Just in case. He injected her. She collapsed. He panicked. And then he closed the blinds. Closed them the wrong way. It's always the small things. The forgotten habits. The unnoticed rituals. You don't just close blinds. You do it your way. And when someone breaks that pattern, it's like a ghost walking through your house. You feel it, even if you can't see it. Rachel Green was murdered, not with a gun, not with a knife, with silence, with planning, with control, and with a chemical that takes everything but your mind. She was still alive when she hit that carpet. Still inside, watching the light fade as the blinds tilted up, not down. A simple reversal. But in the world I lived in, that's all it took. The calendar was the first thing I noticed. Not the blood, though there was some. Not the broken picture frame on the floor. Not the slumped body in the hallway. No, it was the kitchen calendar. One of those with kittens for each month. March had a tabby playing with yarn, and every single day was crossed off, except for Wednesday. Just one empty square. In my line of work, that kind of silence, the space where something should be, speaks louder than the rest. The victim was Lisa Hammond, 35, pediatric nurse. Lived alone in a small 2-bedroom rental in Billings, Montana. Her mother hadn't heard from her in 2 days, and when she went to check, she found the front door slightly ajar. Lisa was on the floor, face down, a deep bruise on the side of her neck. No weapon in sight. Initial assessment, possible fall, maybe even a seizure. But I've been around enough crime scenes to know when something's been nudged into looking like an accident. Lisa's body wasn't in a natural fall posture. Her arm was tucked neatly under her chest. Her phone was placed beside her, screen up like it had been set down, not dropped. Then there was a calendar. Every day that month, from the 1st to the 19th, was crossed out with a thick red marker, except for the 20th, Wednesday. Lisa was the kind of person who lived by structure. I confirmed it with her co-workers later. Same lunch every Tuesday. Grocery shopping on Sundays. She crossed off the days like clockwork, always before bed. But if the last day she marked was Tuesday, then she was alive that night. The coroner had estimated time of death as late Monday. Give or take 12 hours. That would mean she died before Tuesday. But that couldn't be right. She crossed off Tuesday. So now I had 2 clocks, and they weren't ticking in sync. Her phone logs gave me more. A series of texts on Tuesday afternoon with a man named Brandon McKay. Friendly tone. Jokes about work. At 6:02 p.m., she texted, "Got off early. Making pasta tonight. Want to come over?" He responded, "Can't tonight. Tomorrow maybe?" Her reply, "Wednesday works. Same time." His final message, "Perfect. Can't wait. But Brandon said he never went. We brought him in the next morning. Pale, nervous, like someone who hadn't slept. He stuck to his story. They were dating casually, nothing serious, and he hadn't seen her since the weekend. Claimed he had a late shift at the auto shop on Wednesday. His boss confirmed he clocked in at 6:45 p.m. Too clean, too rehearsed. Meanwhile, the forensics team had something strange to show me. The kitchen garbage, a receipt from Wednesday morning. Time-stamped 9:16 a.m. Local bakery. Lisa's debit card. A blueberry muffin and a large black coffee. That receipt shouldn't exist. If she died late Monday or early Tuesday, she couldn't have bought anything Wednesday morning. But the register was accurate. Security footage from the bakery confirmed a woman, same build, same jacket, made the purchase. But the footage was grainy, face obscured by a hoodie. No definitive ID. It gets worse. That blueberry muffin, still on the kitchen counter, uneaten, in the bag, the receipt inside, which meant she didn't eat it. She didn't live with it. Someone else brought it there. Someone who wanted it to look like Lisa had been alive on Wednesday morning. Someone who marked Tuesday off the calendar, but hesitated on Wednesday. Maybe they weren't sure how far to take the lie. Maybe they slipped. Now the timeline was fractured. Lisa was likely dead late Tuesday night, after she marked the calendar and before anyone could see her Wednesday. A closer inspection of her body revealed something subtle. A ligature mark, barely visible beneath the bruise. It wasn't a fall. It was strangulation. Pressure was applied, then removed, slow and deliberate, quiet, personal. Lisa knew her killer. And that's when it hit me. The only person who knew she lived by that calendar, who knew her routine, knew when she shopped, when she crossed off the day, was someone who had been there often enough to notice. Someone who wanted to delay discovery. Someone who thought they could fool the clock, but forgot that paper remembers too. We pulled Brandon's financials. Quiet guy, no real red flags, except for a credit card charge on Wednesday morning, 8:53 a.m. Same bakery, same order. He'd bought the muffin. We brought him back in. This time he cracked, said they argued Tuesday night. Something about her not wanting to move forward with the relationship. Said she got angry. Said she fell after shoving him. Said he panicked. That's not what happened. Brandon waited until she turned her back, grabbed her from behind, used his arm. Long, slow compression. No blood, no mess. Then he staged the scene. Cleaned up, took her phone and texted himself the pasta message. Preloaded it, scheduled it to send. Went to bed, slept, bought the muffin the next morning. Brought it to her house. Marked Tuesday off the calendar to make it look normal. But when he stared at that little white box for Wednesday, he froze. Couldn't do it. Couldn't cross off a day she didn't live through. And that hesitation unraveled everything. Lisa wasn't forgotten. She left behind more than messages. She left a trail in red ink, a visual heartbeat. Her silence on Wednesday was an absence. It was a signal, one only a forensic eye could see. Sometimes the truth isn't in what's written, but in what's left blank. Some things you learn by instinct, others by experience. But the most important details at a crime scene, they're usually things no one else is looking at. In this case, it was a trash can, stainless steel pedal lid, standard kitchen size, full to the brim. And that was the problem. The call came in on a quiet Friday morning. A wellness check in a gated community just outside Santa Fe, New Mexico. Thomas Whitaker, 61, retired architect, had missed his weekly poker night, then returned calls, and hadn't picked up his paper in 2 days. His neighbor, a close friend, grew concerned. When police made entry, they found him in his recliner, TV still on, no signs of forced entry, no blood, no struggle, just a man who looked like he died in his sleep. But something was off before I even crossed the threshold. The air wasn't stale enough, not for a man dead 2 days. His body hadn't begun to decompose the way it should have. And then there was the trash, overflowing with food wrappers, used napkins, and takeout containers. Normally, nothing. But for a man who lived alone, cook for himself, and was reportedly obsessive about cleanliness. It was already suspicious. More than suspicious. It was wrong. The coroner gave an initial estimate of death, somewhere between Wednesday night and Thursday morning. Natural causes. Heart failure. But I asked for full tox screening anyway. You don't always get second chances with evidence. Thomas's house was pristine. Books alphabetized. Kitchen knives aligned. His shoes by the door placed neatly side by side. This was someone who managed his world with control, which made that trash bin scream even louder. I started digging. Figuratively and literally, the garbage was layered like sediment. The bottom half was mostly old mail, some apple cores, a used tea bag, and neatly folded grocery receipts. The top half? Fast food. Greasy bags from a local burger place. Taco wrappers. A large pizza box. None of it opened. None of it eaten. Timestamp on the burger receipt. Thursday night. 8:12 p.m. But Thomas had been dead since at least Thursday morning. So who ordered the food? Backtracking credit card activity showed the order came from a delivery app, paid with Thomas's card. His phone was unlocked on the kitchen counter, battery at 10%. The app confirmed the order, GPS tracked, delivered to his home. So again, who took the food, dumped in the trash, and left the scene undisturbed? I pulled security cam footage from a front porch. It showed the delivery guy arriving at 8:26 p.m., dropping the bag, ringing the bell, leaving. No one opened the door. But 15 minutes later, a tall figure in a hooded sweatshirt appeared on camera. No face, no hesitation. Walked right up, grabbed the food, entered using a key. Thomas never mentioned giving out a spare. We canvassed for people who had access. No signs of break-in. No key missing. But there was someone who knew the house inside and out. Thomas's son, Eric, 33, freelance web designer. Outspoken, intense, estranged from his father for years. According to neighbors, he hadn't visited in over a year. But one neighbor, Mr. Allen, mentioned something strange. On Thursday morning, he saw Eric's car parked down the street. Said it was gone by noon. We brought Eric in. He denied visiting. Claimed he didn't even know his father was dead. Seemed genuinely shocked until we mentioned the food order. That's when his story wobbled. Said maybe he had stopped by to make peace. Said his father didn't answer, so he left. No entry, no confrontation. When asked how the trash was full of untouched food ordered from his own delivery account, using Thomas's card, he got quiet. Then the tox screen came in. High levels of lorazepam. Sleeping medication. Prescribed, yes, but not at those levels. Enough to sedate a man into respiratory depression, especially at Thomas's age. The pills were crushed. Traces found in a mug of herbal tea by the bedside. Eric had motive, financial. He was deep in debt. Thomas had recently updated his will to leave most of the estate to a conservation trust. Eric knew, probably hoped to change his father's mind. Maybe he showed up, made his case, got rejected, and maybe he made tea. Then he waited, watched TV, sat in that perfect little house while his father slipped into silence. And when it was done, he panicked. He needed to create a timeline, a false trail. He used the phone, ordered food with the app, hoping to make it look like his father was alive on Thursday night. But he didn't think it through. He forgot about the camera, forgot about the timestamp, forgot that his father never ate takeout, never let trash accumulate. And worst of all, he forgot that real life doesn't edit itself cleanly. He left the food in the bag, tossed it out untouched, filled the bin, thinking volume meant activity. But the details were wrong. And the details are where I live. Eric pled guilty to manslaughter, claimed he just wanted to make him listen, claimed the pills were only meant to calm him down. But what he really wanted was control, over the narrative, over the timeline, over the end. But the trash didn't lie. It wasn't just full. It was full when it shouldn't have been. I've seen enough death to know when something isn't aging naturally. Bodies, homes, stories, they all deteriorate at a certain pace. But dust? Dust tells time in a way most people overlook. It's not just dirt. It's skin cells, fibers, and microscopic echoes of movement, or the absence of it, which is why, on that particular Thursday afternoon, I knew something was wrong before I even stepped all the way inside. The house belonged to Meredith Sloan, 47, divorced, a quiet librarian in Boise, Idaho. Lived alone, no pets, no known enemies. She hadn't shown up for work in 3 days, and her sister, who lived out of state, couldn't get her on the phone. A wellness check led to the discovery. Meredith's body, curled up at the base of her staircase, neck broken, looked like a fall, except it wasn't. When I entered, I saw the staircase, the body, the rug she supposedly slipped on, but my eyes kept drifting toward the piano. It was an upright Yamaha, black lacquered finish, positioned by the window, untouched and already coated in a thin layer of dust. Too thin. That piano was Meredith's routine. She played every night at 9 p.m. like clockwork. Neighbors confirmed it. A short melody, never more than 10 minutes, like she was playing for herself. Habit, not performance. But that dust meant no one had touched it in at least a week. I knelt beside the staircase. The fall was believable at a glance. Awkward angle, leg twisted under, phone cracked nearby. But the phone screen wasn't active. No recent calls. And when I opened a text log, the last message she'd sent was on Saturday, 4 days ago. So now I had a dead body that looked freshly fallen, a piano that hadn't been touched in days, and a timeline that didn't make sense. Meredith's fridge told me more. Inside were fresh groceries, milk unopened, vegetables crisp, all purchased on Saturday, according to receipts. But on the counter, a stack of mail. The top envelope was a local advertisement, postmarked Tuesday. She never brought it in. Someone had collected her groceries, but not her mail. I went back to the staircase. That's when I noticed something microscopic, but crucial, a faint scrape on the wooden banister, about shoulder height, parallel to the edge, like someone had dragged something heavy up or down. We dusted for prints. Most belonged to Meredith, but we found a partial on the banister, fresh, smudged, and too large to be hers. It matched a man named Stephen Voss, 52, recently out of work, former security contractor, and Meredith's ex-husband. The divorce had been clean, at least on paper. No kids, no court fights. But the neighbors said he'd been around more lately, claimed they were reconnecting. One even mentioned seeing him outside the house late Saturday night, parked down the street. We found Stephen at a motel across town. He looked ragged, the kind of tired that comes from running out of lies. When we brought him in, he said he hadn't seen Meredith in over a month. Then we showed him the fingerprint. He shifted in his seat, said he'd gone by to check on her Saturday night, claimed she'd invited him in, that they'd talked, said she tripped while coming down the stairs, that he panicked, didn't know what to do, left her there, claimed he thought maybe she was just unconscious. But that didn't hold up. There were bruises on Meredith's forearms, consistent with restraint, not a fall. Her fingernails had skin cells under them. Male DNA. His. That's when the truth started to slip out. They'd fought. She'd told him not to come by anymore. Said she was seeing someone new. He snapped. Pushed her during an argument at the top of the stairs. She tumbled. Fast. Head hit first. She didn't scream. He waited. Probably hoped she'd move. She didn't. So he cleaned. Not thoroughly, but just enough. Moved her phone. Wiped down the railing. Partially. Then he left. But not before doing something I've only seen once or twice in my career. He waited 2 more days, then came back. Entered with his old key. Left the groceries he knew she'd meant to pick up. Turned off the heat. Closed the curtains. Hoping to preserve the illusion that she'd died recently. That it hadn't been him. But dust betrayed him. That piano should have had fingerprints. The keys should have shown oil, pressure, contact. But it was untouched since Saturday. Just like everything else. The trash hadn't been taken out. The thermostat hadn't been adjusted. The house had stopped breathing 4 days ago, and he thought he could restart with props. I've said it before. People always worry about blood. They forget the subtle markers. Dust doesn't lie. It accumulates on truth and fiction the same way. It gathers in silence. Meredith didn't fall. She was pushed. And the man who tried to outsmart the passage of time, he forgot that time doesn't wait. It just settles. Quietly, invisibly, until someone like me walks in and notices the dust.